phone or iPad, but those are operating systems as well, right? They're performing the key functions of what an operating system does, right? And what is that key function? Well, it's how we allow a human to talk to the hardware and get the hardware to do things, to do what it is we need it to do, right? Let me bring up, I have another diagram somewhere. Let me bring this up here. All right. When we buy a computer, what are we buying? We're buying a collection of hardware, right? It might be CPU, right? That's your processor. The processor, a lot of people refer to like if you have a desktop computer and you have a tower, a lot of people call that tower the CPU. Well, there's actually a lot of stuff inside of that tower. The CPU is just one little chip inside of it. Or in my laptop, there's one little chip inside of it that is the CPU, the central processing unit. But people refer to the entire computer as the CPU because the CPU is so important, right? It's like your brain, the human brain. Brain's really important. You can't function without your brain. But I don't refer to my entire body as my brain, right? It's just, this organ stuck in your skull. Well, that CPU in your computer is the same way. It's doing the thinking, right? But thinking by itself isn't enough. It needs other pieces. It needs things like network interface cards. How do we talk to the network? Do we have Wi-Fi? Do we have physical network, like a cable that we plug in? What do we have? We need cards that let us connect to those types of networks. What about sound? How do I play sound out so that people can hear it, right? I've got to have sound circuitry. Disk. How do we remember things? How do we store information on our computers so that it'll be there the next time that we come back? And RAM, which is very similar. In fact, we're going to talk more in detail about this hardware later on, but just
awooda ma tahay arday doonaya barashada IT-ga iyadoo aad ku baranayso muddo kooban
haddii aad tahay arday daneynaya barashada kombiyuutarka laabka iyo ku hadalka luqadaha Ingiriiska Heritage Academic waxa uu ku hayaa koorsooyinka kala ah
Active Director the Human Service Computer Communication Networking American English
koorsooyinkaasi waxa ay soconayaan muddo dhan 3 bilood halkan waa Heritage Academic sida aad u jeedaan systemka cusub ee sanadkan ayaa halkan ku yaala waad u jeedaan goobta aan fadhiyo sida ay u qurxan tahay adiga kaliga ayaa ku raaxaysanaya kombiyuutarkaada Heritage Academy waa academic diyaarinaya arday khibradooda aad loo diyaarinayo sidoo kale iskuulka waxa uu diyaar ku leeyahay practical joogto ah oo loogu talagalay ardayda baranaysa koorsooyinka aan kor ku soo xusnay
isdiiwaangelinta iskuulka Heritage Academic waxa ay bilaabanaysaa 22ka bisha 8aad sanada 2021 waxayna ku eg tahay 5ta bisha 9aad sanada 2021 Heritage Academic waxa uu ku yaalaa degmada Hodan gaar ahaan agagaarka Laanta Axmed Gurey wixii faahfaahin dheeraad ah fadlan kala xiriir lambarada shaashada kaaga muuqda
a quick analogy. Disk and RAM, it's like short-term memory versus long-term memory, right? Your disk is your long-term memory. It sticks around a long time. It's not particularly fast, but it is really good at retaining information. You have a lot of it. RAM is short-term memory. It is very fast, but you don't have much of it. So you have to use it very efficiently. So those two work together. Well, all of this hardware has to be handled. We have to communicate with it. When I double-clicked on that web browser icon, I said, I want to launch Microsoft Edge, right? Double-click on it. I'm telling the operating system, hey, I want you to do something. I want you to launch a web browser so that I can see it. Now, in the background, what's going on is the instruction is sent to the CPU to launch the processor, to launch the web browser. It's got to go to disk to find the web browser. It's got to copy it into RAM where it actually runs from and get it up and running. And then it's got to display it on the screen. I didn't add display as an item here of hardware. The display would be another piece. So it's got to display it on the screen, and then it's got to be listening for me to interact, like mouse click and typing on the keyboard and all that. All of that is being managed by this operating system. But I don't see that, right? As the user, I don't see the processor. In fact, I didn't even see the disk or anything. It's there. I can see it if I really want to. If I, pull up like... pull up one of my property screens here, then I can come in and it'll tell me, oh yeah, I've got an Intel Core i7, I've got 4 gigs of RAM, I can find out how much disk space I have. I can see that hardware if I want to. But users don't normally think that way. They think, I just want to launch a web browser. I don't care about the hardware behind the scenes, right? So users think in terms of their software. Spreadsheet, video player, web browser, that's what they think of, right? They don't think of all the hardware behind the scenes. Meanwhile, in between is our friend, the operating system. The software is running on top of the OS, and the OS is talking to the hardware for us so that we don't have to think about it. It's handling all of that. It knew where to find the web browser. It knew